Hi, my name's Ross Fairgrieve and I'm a professional cameraman and video producer from Reading in the UK. I find myself doing quite a few interviews with people who aren't professional presenters. You know, they're a person who works in a particular company who finds themselves in front of a camera for whatever reason. I think it can be quite daunting for somebody that isn't used to being in front of a camera to do so, especially if they've got to try and deliver a piece straight to camera. So they don't have a person, you know, off camera to talk to, they have to actually talk down the lens. A lot of times as kind of video producers, we end up avoiding these situations because it is much easier to get somebody who's not experienced to talk to a person. So we'll have an off-camera interview like this, interviewer over there, and they can talk and they can have a conversation. And it tends to work pretty well. Sometimes though, this isn't quite the setup you want. You'd rather have them talking directly to their audience. Maybe it's a bit more of a personal message, or maybe that message is just designed for the audience themselves. And so you really want to have them talking straight to the camera, but how do you get around that kind of problem of just staring down that kind of accusing eye of a camera lens? Well, I thought about it a bit, and so I decided to build this thing. There you go. So you're probably wondering, what the hell is this thing? It's basically I suppose a periscope in a box, really. It's got a piece of teleprompter glass in there, which is the kind of key to it. That's the bit that goes in front of the lens. And so what this means is that as far as the camera is concerned, the light that bounces off the subject and heads into the camera is just like normal. You know, the camera just sees it as if the subject was sitting there, and that's that, normal interview. However, half the light that comes into the box is then bounced through it, just like a periscope, and heads over to your interviewer who's sitting to the side. So as far as the subject's concerned, they're looking not at a camera, but they're looking at an interviewer. They see a face and a pair of eyes to talk to and somebody who reacts, and it doesn't feel quite as weird as just talking to a camera, basically. It tends to work really well, particularly for inexperienced interviewees who aren't used to having to sit there and talk to a box, but are very used to sitting there and talking to a person. It's a nice way of doing it, and it gets a really nice, personal, relaxed feeling for the audience, just as if the audience are being talked to themselves. I mentioned also that it had a piece of teleprompter glass in it. It's also called beam splitter glass. With this in mind, it's quite expensive stuff. I thought might as well make it teleprompter as well. So I've done that. There's a slot in the top there through which you can slide an iPad mini with your favourite teleprompter app on it. The one that I use, you can also control remotely from an iPhone, which is great because you can then adjust the speed, you can adjust the content of the script without having to pull the iPad out of the box. Just do it all from the iPhone. Also, I've designed it so that the whole box can be flipped upside down, so rather than it being kind of left aligned, where the cameraman is sitting off to the left and is also doing the interviewing, you can flip the whole thing over to the right, then you have the cameraman sitting on the left, working the camera, and you have a separate interviewer on the right-hand side of the camera, just carrying out the interview. I'm planning on offering this as a pretty low-cost option to add to a day's rental, much lower cost than it would be to hire in a separate autocue operator. I'm not saying this is going to rule out an autocue op. Obviously, an autocue op is going to be able to do a very nice job of it. That's what they do. But in certain situations where you think you might want an autocue but aren't sure, this is a great little thing to add to a package. It's also going to be low cost enough that if you're doing even just an off-camera interview and you find that your interview is struggling, you're not going to have to resort to holding up a piece of paper in front of your face and saying, just read this, which, let's be honest, never really works. In this case, you could just bring out the teleprompter, pop it up where the interviewer was sitting, and just, if it really comes to it, just let them read the script. And it's going to be a lot better than trying to hold up a piece of A4. So this box really packs in quite a lot of functionality. It allows you to get nice, relaxed, straight-to-camera interviews that are very personal. It also works as a teleprompter. Pop the iPad in there and you've got a full controllable speed script. And finally, because it's nice and low cost, you don't have to just use it as an on-camera teleprompter. If you want to use it just to remind your interviewee of what they were going to say, you know, have a couple of bullet points on it, or indeed have the full script up next to the camera there, you can do that. If you'd like to know a bit more about it, come and visit my website at rossfairgrieve.com, or drop me an email at info@rossfairgrieve.com. Look forward to working with you soon.